Hello everyone, this is Desocrates and welcome to the history of Saint Olga of Kiev, a very intelligent person in history who took revenge on people in a very unique and interesting way. I'll also go into how she became a saint. Olga's birthday is unknown, but it's believed to be somewhere between 890 AD and as late as 925 AD. She was said to be of Varangian origin and to be born in Pleskov. If you haven't heard of the Varangian Guard, I highly suggest reading about them. Little is known about Olga's life before her marriage to Prince Igor of Kiev at the age of 15 and the birth of their son. Igor was the son and heir of Rurik, founder of the Rurik dynasty. After his father's death, Igor was under the guardianship of Oleg, who had consolidated power in the region, conquering neighbouring tribes and establishing a capital in Kiev. This loose tribal federation became known as Kievan Rus, a territory covering what are now parts of Russia, Ukraine and Belarus. There was a neighbouring tribe named the Drevlins, with which the Kievan Rus Empire had a complex relationship. The Drevlins had joined Kiev in military campaigns against the Byzantine Empire and paid tribute to Igor's predecessors. They stopped paying tribute upon Oleg's death and instead gave money to a local warlord. In 945, Igor set out to the Drevlin capital to force the tribe to pay tribute to him. Being confronted by Igor's larger army, the Drevlins backed away and paid him his tribute. This is where Igor got greedy and wasn't very smart. As he and his army rode home, he decided the payment was not enough and returned with only a small number of soldiers this time, seeking more tribute. Upon his arrival to their territory, the Drevlins murdered Igor. According to the Byzantine Leo the Deacon, Igor was captured by them tied to tree trunks and torn in two, although some people do believe that part was made up. After Igor's death at the hands of the Drevlins, Olga assumes the throne, as their son was still too young to rule. The Drevlins, emboldened by the murder of the king, sent a messenger to Olga proposing that she marry Igor's murderer, Prince Mao. 20 Drevlin diplomats got a boat to go to Kiev to pass along their king's message and to ensure Olga's compliance. They arrived in her court and told the queen why they were in Kiev, to report that they had slain her husband and that Olga should come and marry their prince. Olga responded saying, "Your proposal is pleasing to me indeed. My husband cannot rise again from the dead. But I desire to honour you tomorrow in the presence of my people. Return now to your boat and remain there with an aspect of arrogance. I shall send for you on the morrow, and you shall say, 'We will not ride on horses nor go on foot. Carry us in our boat,' and you shall be carried in your boat." When the Drevlins returned the next day, they waited outside Olga's court to receive the honour she had promised. When they repeated the words she had told them to say, the people of Kiev rose up, carrying the Drevlins in their boat. The ambassadors believed this was a great honour, as if they were being carried by palanquin, similar to a Roman litter. The people brought them into the court, where they were dropped into a trench that had been dug the day before under Olga's orders. Here the ambassadors were buried alive. It is written that Olga bent down to watch them as they were buried and inquired whether they found the honour to their taste. Olga then sent a message to the Drevlins that they should send their distinguished men to her in Kiev, so that she might go to their prince with due honour. The Drevlins, unaware of the fate of the first diplomatic party, gathered another party of men to send. The best men who governed the land of Dereva were sent. When they arrived, Olga commanded her people to make them a bath and invited the men to appear before her after they had bathed. When they entered the bathhouse, Olga had set it on fire from the doors so that all the Drevlins within burned to death. You may think that she stopped there, but no. Olga then sent another message to the Drevlins, this time ordering them to prepare great quantities of mead in the city where you killed my husband, that I may weep over his grave and hold a funeral feast for him. When Olga and a small group of attendants arrived at Igor's tomb, she did indeed weep and hold a funeral feast. The Drevlins sat down to join them and began to drink heavily. When the Drevlins were drunk, she ordered her followers to kill them, and went about herself cheering on her retinue to the massacre of the Drevlins. According to the primary chronicle, 5,000 Drevlins were killed on this night, but Olga returned to Kiev to prepare an army to finish off the survivors. The initial conflict between the two armies went very well for Olga's forces, who won the battle and drove the survivors back into their cities. Olga then led her army to the Drevlin capital, the city where her husband had been slain, and laid siege to the city. The siege lasted for a year without success, when Olga thought of a plan to trick the Drevlins. She sent them a message saying, "Why do you persist in holding out? All your cities have surrendered to me and submitted to tribute, so that the inhabitants now cultivate their fields and their lands in peace. But you had rather tire of hunger without submitting to tribute." The Drevlins responded that they would submit to tribute, but that they were afraid she was still intent on avenging her husband. Olga answered that the murder of the messengers sent to Kiev as well as the events of the feast had been enough for her. She then made a small request. "Give me 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from each house." The Drevlins, overjoyed at the prospect of the siege ending for such a small price, did as she asked. Olga then instructed her army to attach pieces of sulphur bound with pieces of cloth to each bird. At nightfall, Olga told her soldiers to set the pieces aflame and release the birds. They returned to their nests within the city, which led to the city being set aflame. The primary chronicle says there was not a house that was not consumed, and it was impossible to extinguish the flames, because all the houses caught fire at once. As the people fled the burning city, Olga ordered her soldiers to catch them, killing some of them and others given to her followers as slaves. After her subjugation of the Drevlins, Olga focused more on solidifying the Rus Empire. Olga established hunting grounds, boundary posts, towns and trading posts across the empire. Olga's network of trading posts proved important to the ethnic and cultural unification of the Rus, and her border posts began the establishment of national boundaries. In the 950s, Olga travelled to Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, to visit Emperor Constantine VII. After arriving in Constantinople, Olga converted to Christianity with the assistance of the Emperor and the Patriarch. The primary chronicle goes into detail about how this happened. The reigning emperor was named Constantine, son of Leo. Olga came before him, and when he saw that she was very fair-looking and wise as well, the emperor wondered about her intellect. He spoke with her and remarked she was worthy to reign with him in his city. When Olga heard his words, she replied that she was still a pagan, and that if he decided to baptize her, he should perform this function himself, otherwise she was unwilling to accept baptism. The emperor, with the assistance of the patriarch, baptized her. When Olga was enlightened, she rejoiced in soul and body. The patriarch said to her, "Blessed art thou among the women of the Rus, for thou hast loved the light and quit the darkness. The sons of Rus shall bless thee to the last generation of thy descendants." The patriarch taught Olga in prayer. Olga bowed her head and eagerly drank in his teachings. She said to the patriarch, "Through thy prayer, Holy Father, may I be preserved from the crafts and assaults of the devil." At her baptism, she was christened Helena, after the mother of Constantine the Great. The chronicle recounts that Olga asked the emperor to baptize her, knowing that his sponsorship, by the rules of spiritual kinship, would make marriage between them a kind of spiritual incest. After the baptism, when Constantine repeated his marriage proposal, Olga answered that she could not marry him since church law forbade a goddaughter to marry her godfather. The following was their interaction. The emperor summoned Olga and made known to her that he wished her to become his wife, but she replied, "How can you marry me after yourself baptizing me and calling me your daughter? For among Christians that is unlawful, as you yourself must know." Then the emperor said, "Olga, you have outwitted me." He gave her many gifts of gold, silver, silks, various vases, and dismissed her, still calling her his daughter. Olga died from illness in 969. When her son wanted to move the throne to a new region, Olga convinced him to stay with her during her final days. Only 3 days later she passed away. Her family and all of the Rus mourned for her. Her son announced that he does not care to remain in Kiev but would prefer to move to the centre of his realm, where all riches are concentrated. But Olga responded, "You behold me in my weakness. Why do you desire to depart from me?" She then begged him first to bury her and then to go wherever he would. After her death 3 days later, they carried her out and buried her in her tomb. Olga had given command not to hold a funeral feast for her, for she had a priest who performed the last rites over the sainted princess. Although her son disapproved of his mother's Christian tradition, he still obeyed her request to have a Christian funeral. Her tomb remained in Kiev for over 2 centuries but was destroyed by the Mongolian armies of Batu Khan in 1240. Even if she couldn't, Olga's grandson Vladimir helped to bring Christianity to the Rus. The primary chronicle highlights the significance of her conversion to Christianity. Olga was the precursor of the Christian land, even as the day precedes the sun and as the dawn precedes the day. For she shone like the moon by night, and she was radiant among the infidels like a pearl in the mire, since the people were soiled and not yet purified of their sin by holy baptism. But she herself was cleansed by this sacred purification. She was the first from Rus to enter the kingdom of God, and the sons of Rus praise her as their leader. For since her death she has interceded with God on their behalf. In 1547, the Russian Orthodox Church named Olga a saint. The Catholic Church called Olga equal to the Apostles. She is also a saint in the Roman Catholic Church. She has a feast day on July the 11th, the date of her birth. She is the patron of widows and converts. Basically, Olga was a very intelligent person who was loyal to her husband until the very end, even turning down the Byzantine emperor, and took revenge in some very unique ways. Let me know what you think of Olga. Would you expect your partner to take revenge for you? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed watching, then remember to subscribe to my channel and to leave a like. More videos like this will be coming out soon.